Well, hello and welcome to the Data-Driven Formula One with Patrick Hansen, Gana Pogrebna.
Hello, Ghana. Hello, all.
Yeah,
Nice to be
hello. back
with Data Driven F1.
Yes, so
And
we had quite. We need to explain because you probably will see that there was a gap in posting, but you probably will not see the real one because we are doing this kind of we are pre-recording these things. And yeah, it was basically mostly due to my absence because I was away. And yeah, thank you. I just want to thank Patrick for his patience with me
No
and
problem.
my travel. Yeah. So, and today we have a very exciting topic, right? And I have to say, I just read it. I think that this is like pure sabotage from Patrick, who just wants to talk again about Enzo Ferrari, but he just found a
Yeah,
different topic to talk again about Enzo Ferrari.
exactly. The good thing is, as only we two are doing these podcasts, we can choose the topics where we like to talk about without ignoring other people. Besides this, that of course Ferrari is always a good topic to discuss
Yeah, to
about,
Patrick, because
especially in the
Patrick
70s.
is a Ferrari fan.
Yeah, but besides this, I mean, if you're not like Ferrari, I mean, you can skip this episode and just continue with the next one. But
No, I think
nevertheless,
this is going to be interesting because I'm
yes,
also interested in Luca Montezemolo. It's a very good, very interesting character to talk about.
yeah,
And I think we at the at before we started to record, kind of Patrick and I think Patrick sees Luca as quite a positive figure, and I see him a more controversial figure. but
yeah,
basically, yeah, I think it will be an interesting discussion. So let's just get into it.
exactly. I mean, at the end, all the characters we are speaking here in these episodes are somehow controversial. So we always have a good discussion. And I think also our next episode will have a quite controversial figure. But anyway, I think it will be an interesting episode because my background is a little bit business administration, and Luca Montesemolo was and still is the manager behind. And I think it's also a good episode to analyze the different success factors of the teams, because normally we spoke about the drivers, of course, we spoke about the founders. Sometimes we mentioned engineers like Gordon Murray, who was the key figure for the success at Brabham, but we not spoke about, let's say, one of the internal leaders, the managers, somebody as Luca Montesemolo, somebody like Patrick Head at Williams, for example. So I thought this would be an interesting episode to see that really success in Formula One is not just the driver, not just the car, but there are a lot of people involved.
Yeah, and I mean, this guy is like the boss, right?
Yes.
And I'm gonna be just as I'm just going to try to introduce some controversy right away,
Yes.
before Patrick kind of tells you how cool this guy is. And so I heard that he was called the Ferrari Golden Boy. Is that correct? Do you know? Do you know anything
Yes.
about this?
Yes. I mean, Golden Boy.
I mean, it suits
we
the
will
character.
come. We will. Yeah, we will come. I think when we discuss his biography a little bit to do why, because as you know, I worked 10 years in Mexico, and if you analyze Latin business culture, you need to be inside the circle of trust, and this Luca Montesemolo, based on his knowledge, but also on his soft skills, he had reached something what was quite difficult. He was in the circle of trust, first of all, of Enzo Ferrari, but also Gianni Agnelli, the big Fiat boss, who also hired him a little bit with the idea that he should have an eye on Enzo Ferrari. Because Agnelli and Ferrari, they liked each other, they appreciated each other, but nevertheless, of course, they had been complete different mindsets involved. And Luca Montezemolo had the trust from Enzo Ferrari and from Gianni Agnelli. And he got this based on a call at an Italian radio station. And due to this, I think it's correct what you say. He was something like a golden boy because he was supported by Enzo Ferrari.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the start of his life is a little bit like Donald Trump, like he's a guy from a rich family, but then not to be confused with Donald Trump, because this guy is actually good at what he does.
Yeah.
And I think like there is this big debate, right, about whether you should be, like, if you are leading a team like Ferrari, whether you should be yourself a good, racing driver, or
correct,
have experience, or do you have to have mechanical skills? And I have a research paper on this with Amanda Goodall, where basically we do find that it helps, right? But it doesn't mean that there aren't any good managers who made it in the business. And certainly Luca Montezemolo is one of those guys who kind of didn't actually have the mechanical or racing background. They had business background.
He had a little bit
racing
background.
Yeah.
He was something what we call a gentleman driver.
Yeah. As a gentleman driver, and as a aristocrat, like ancestor of aristocratic family. Yeah. I mean, he was definitely interested. But what I mean, he wasn't a competitive driver or anything. Right. So yeah, I mean, I think so that's an interesting thing. And there are some, it just shows you that there are some exceptions to the rule that, if you are a competitive driver or have competitive experience in any racing, then it helps. But certainly in his case, it worked out. Right. And yeah, like you said, he was a very, very kind of trusted person in the business.
Yeah, and by the way, you don't only have to trust Gunnar or me. We will put at least a link to one of his speeches, which he gave at, I don't remember, was it Princeton, Harvard, one of the famous US universities, where he spoke about his role at Ferrari, and which is also quite interesting because it shows a bit his character, because he was something like an old-fashioned manager, quite the opposite to Enzo Ferrari, who not had this background of an rich family. So he came from a rich aristocratic family. So the both, this not always had to be the case. For example, we discussed now I forgot the name.
It will come to you. Yeah, just another thing that I wanted to mention, and maybe something as well that we will maybe discuss a bit later. I mean, one thing that struck me about this guy when I started reading about him was that he was well, obviously he was very young when he, got into that circle of trust. But then another thing that struck me was that this is the guy who was, throughout his life, is very successful businessman, and yet he is completely against advertisement in racing, and actually on multiple occasions was saying that I think that the best advertisement for Ferrari is Ferrari cars. Like, we shouldn't have any advertisement. And so that was quite a cool thing to say, considering that advertisement is probably one of the major things that feeds into the business of Formula One teams. So I thought that was
Yeah,
quite
see,
a cool thing to say.
yeah, but let's say I can see his point here, because let's say Ferrari is a very exclusive brand which wants to have exclusive consumers, buyers, and we will come to this also when we speak about his quotes. So let's say making a lot of advertising is a little bit against the idea to have an exclusive product, and may even be counterproductive if you not do it in a right way. So from a marketing point, he has an idea here. And by the way, the name of the person was Wolfgang von Trips, the Ferrari driver, who had also this aerocratic background, but also as he was active quite shortly after the Second World War, was not really in a rich family, rich because they had still the big castle, but they not had much cash, so he had also to work as a student. And this is an opposite to Luca Cordero de Montezemolo, who was aristocratic and had a quite rich background.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay, so I guess again, very very interesting background, and then his family wasn't in trains, right? As far as I
no, he wasn't in trains, but he after leaving Ferrari.
He wasn't. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, after leaving Ferrari, he became like the CEO of of the train network. Yeah.
Exactly, of an Italian private train company, and of course we will also come to this. So his statistics: he was born August 31, 1947 in Bologna, Italy. Bologna, let me say, about 30 minutes with train from Modena. So inside the Emilia Romagna, there we have practically this triangle: Modena, Turin, Milan, where all the famous car brands are located. So he grown up with this industry around him, and of course Italian, and he is practically also, if you would see the video, I mean, he is how you would imagine Italian gentleman, practically always with shoe and time, having this typical Italian charm, and maybe also playing with it if you see his presentations, for example. So practically the typical cliche of an Italian gentleman. Active in Formula One, he was only for the Ferrari team.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to call him a cliche, that's like a little bit. I mean, I understand.
No, I not wanted to call him a cliche.
Typical, in the appearance, and
exactly, his appearance is practically like you would imagine an Italian gentleman.
Yeah, that's right, and especially from the early. Let's just say not early, but from the black and white Italian films that La Dolce Vita, those types of guys. So that's kind of what you get here, and so I really like this photo where you see Enzo Ferrari. Luca Montezemolo and of course Niki Lauda in the middle.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that this is like the trinity of Ferrari, basically. So you have a lot of diversity there, not only in age but also in thinking, right? Because so I think Enzo Ferrari is, and I don't know whether you agree with me or not, Patrick, but I think of Enzo Ferrari as a very intuitive guy. I mean, of course, he takes input, but I think a lot of his decision making was made on intuition, right? And then Niki Lauda, who is a completely like data guy, like show me the data, show me the numbers, and then the decisions are made then. And in this, I think in this trinity, Luca Montezemolo is the guy who is actually the balance between these two worlds. And I think this is why he's like, he really fit into this whole structure, because he was, like you said, he was, I think, a very good communicator, and he could actually speak to the intuitive part and to the technical, like, data part well. Yeah.
Exactly, and in opposite to Enzo Ferrari, who came, let's say, from a middle level of Italian family, having a background, mechanical background, but not having higher education. For example, he didn't speak English, so he was really trusting Luca Montezemolo, who had all this higher education. He had a degree in law of the University La Sapienza. Afterwards, he was studying commercial law at the Columbia University. So even if they are at complete different backgrounds.
Yeah, he's like a badass corporate lawyer on the team. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. He could have been, even if he, I think he never practiced his law. He always had been on the management position.
Yeah, but you told like how like the majority of the boards are normally corporate lawyers. So yeah, people who are like studied corporate law. So I think this is very kind of. I don't know whether it was typical at the time, but certainly certainly now, if you look at corporate boards, many people are from that background.
Yeah, I think when we see how he came to Ferrari, it sounds practically like a fairy tale. One practical point here is his name, which is his family name, which is Cordero di Montezemolo. As it's quite long, some people shorten it, and important based on Italian grammar. If you want to leave out the Cordero, the name is really Luca Montezemolo. You cannot say Luca di Montezemolo, which would be quite wrong, but often you see this in articles or in videos, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As we mentioned, he was what we would call a gentleman driver, which we saw maybe in the first years of Formula One, still 50s, and maybe the last, maybe in the 60s. But then the gentleman driver didn't make it anymore into Formula One. And here Luca Montezemolo, and I think a great photo where we see him really driving. So he started with a small tuned Fiat 500, which was done by the Italian tuner Giannini, which by the way still exists, and they still tune Fiat. So this is not his car, but this was the car which he drove first before he changed to a semi-official Lancia rally team, which we see on the second photo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like I said, it's very interesting. So obviously he had an interest in racing.
Yeah.
And even entered some competitive events with his own car, obviously.
Yeah, and quite interesting, even if he had this aristocratic background. I mean, his first racing car was this very small Fiat 500. So he not used, let's say, some Maserati, Ferrari, which his father bought him, but a quite small and cheap car.
Yeah, that's right. So.
And with this, we're coming to the famous radio story. So Luca Montesemolo, it was in his semester break. He was back at his parents in Bologna, and he was listening to a radio show, which was called Chiamate Roma 3131. And here the Ferrari team was heavily criticized due to the missing success in the last years. And young Luca took his phone. So remember, folks, at this time we used telephones, so no
proper
WhatsApp,
phones, not smartphones.
No comments on TikTok or Instagram, but he called the radio station and quite emotionally spoke out in the benefit of Ferrari, so which everybody could listen, who was listening to this radio show. So it was a call-in show, as they still exist today, of course. And Enzo Ferrari, who was also listening this, was very happy that there had been this young caller speaking in favor of the team, and also somebody who was capable of speaking, capable of making a point. Again, if you see one of his videos speaking, you know he's a very good speaker. And so he really liked and was very happy about this call. And that's why he sent him his biography with a dedication for Luca de Montesemolo and his courageous words and deeds. After this, after the end of the semester break, Luca Montesemolo went back to Columbia University. And but nevertheless, he asked for an appointment with Enzo Ferrari. Again, he was living in Bologna, very near to the Ferrari factory and Ferrari offices. And in general, Enzo liked the idea. So since the beginning, they had a very good connection, even though they came from two completely different worlds. And Enzo explained, it's a pity that you're going back to America because I can use a young men like you. Of course, a fascinating offer for each young student to get a job at Ferrari. Nevertheless, Montesemolo decided to go back for a moment, but then, yes, decided to drop out in June 1973 and to start working at Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all of course, it's a beautiful story, but the fact of the matter is, again, Enzo Ferrari being Enzo Ferrari, probably like he thought, okay, so this guy is kind of has a, he's very well connected and at the same time excellent communicator, and also very passionate about Italian motorsport. So I think he just immediately saw that this is an asset, right? And
yes.
Again, I think this is intuitive decision, but a very right intuitive decision, right? So he basically, how he picked his, mechanical team, engineering team. So this is very similar type of decision. Okay, well, this guy's a great communicator, he's a corporate lawyer. He is passionate about Italian sport, and he also comes from a good background that could be useful. So what's not to like here? So I guess that's So I think there was obviously more to it than just a radio story. I'm sure that there was a lot of consideration that went into it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the radio call was maybe what triggered it, but of course, as a director of a big company, you don't offer jobs just based on sympathy, but you understand if the person is an asset for your company, yes or no. And I agree with you. He was very intuitive, so I would assume it did not went via the HR department, so they don't make a big investigation. Had to find at least 3 suitable candidates. They then got the interviews, but I said, but Enzo Ferrari was the strong leader and he could decide everything himself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And the next one is just a picture. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of, if you're watching us, and this is kind of the also the point where I say that to like ask people to do the YouTube things and subscriptions and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I just wanted to do justice to the photo that Patrick took himself. So if you're watching us on YouTube, we are showing you some slides. If you're listening to us as a podcast, you will not see the slides, but so we encourage you to go to YouTube because that's our home. And just to again explain, if you are watching us for the first time, like we're not showing videos, and a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but some people got upset with us before. Like, why aren't you showing any video materials? Yeah, because basically we're trying to do this in the most ethical way possible. So we're not stealing copyrighted material because as far as we know anyway, there is no way to show it without getting like a copyright strike or basically infringing somebody's rights. So we either show our own pictures or we show the pictures that could be shared based on a CC BY license, basically that are freely available. And so that's kind of the philosophy of this channel. And obviously we are always looking into ways to show you some video material. So we'll try to do that in the future, but that's what we're doing at the moment. Yeah, and I just wanted to again encourage people to subscribe and encourage people to leave a comment. We're not perfect. We try to be objective. We're not perfect. So if you see any discrepancies or you disagree or you agree or basically let us know. We always want to know your feedback. So and this is a brilliant picture by Patrick of Ferrari factory. And museum, there is a museum there as well, right?
Besides this, that is a beautiful photo. In fact, it's the iconic entrance of the old factory. So this building, as Luca got the call to visit Enzo Ferrari, I assume this is still looks the same as in the early 70s, where he entered the main entrance to see Il Commentatore. And right, it's very near to the museum in Maranello. So after, for example, if you have the opportunity to go to the museum, and another thing we always recommend is to visit the museums. If you have the opportunity to visit the Ferrari Museum, then of course you should also take the opportunity to walk around a little bit. You can see this famous factory, at least from the outside for most of us. You can bypass the famous Ristorante Ferrari. So a lot of the places which you know maybe from photos and videos.
Yeah, so now back to the topic. Of Luca Montezemolo. And so he basically became a PA, right? A personal assistant. Which is, I can tell you that now I got my own institute. It's probably the most important appointment that you can make, because a good assistant can either make it or break it for you. And actually getting a good executive assistant is a very difficult task. And I can understand why Enzo Ferrari liked this guy, because he made a really cool I guess executive assistant. Personal assistant.
Exactly, and this maybe aligns what you mentioned at the beginning, him being as the golden boy. So he started in the company right at a very good position. He didn't have to work his way up, and this directly after leaving university. So thanks to the good connection they two had right from the beginning, he started practically directly at the top without having had any longer experience in working at whatever other company, for example.
Yeah, and like I said, I think there is this kind of trinity of Enzo Ferrari, Niki Lauda, and Luca Montezemolo really worked because this was precisely the time when Niki Lauda was racing for Ferrari.
Exactly, a little bit before, so maybe Luca was also counseling Enzo Ferrari a little bit in which direction to go, because as we discussed regarding the radio story, Ferrari had a longer period of fewer success, and with Luca entering in the company, this luck has changed. Of course, it's not all because of him, but I think he had a very good influence, a good alignment with the more intuitive, emotional Enzo Ferrari, because Luca had the background in law and business administration, so he knew how to change the processes. He knew what are success factors, and he could, I think, use the skills, and this aligned perfectly with Enzo Ferrari, and this was, I think, an important, relevant factor of Ferrari becoming so successful, especially in the second half of the 1970s.
Yeah, and you have to understand the charismatic persona of Enzo Ferrari. Yeah. If he did have a golden boy who wouldn't be useful, he probably wouldn't have had him for a long time. So that means that this guy was actually good, and I mean, he has proven then, since with the rest of his career that he was actually very, very good with business questions. And yeah, I mean, kind of when I was reading his biography, I recalled there was a very famous interview with Jeff Bezos, the guy who is the head of Amazon. And he was basically saying in that interview that, people think that the executives need to make a lot of decisions. But the truth of the matter is you need to make very few decisions throughout your career. But these decisions have to be of very high quality. And that's what counts. Like, basically what your job is like, your job is not to screw up big time and make the right high quality decision at exactly the right time. Like, basically before anyone else makes that decision. So that's how you kind of get in ahead this market curve. And I think, so Luca Montezemolo, I think he's probably a product of his family background and his communication with Enzo Ferrari, because I think this is what he learned, I think, to actually make these right decisions at exactly the right time. So, and this is why we see this kind of successful career, motorsport, and then successful career in train management. It's all it all kind of comes together, because to be an executive is tough. It is a tough job.
And I would align here. You can also could bridge the difference between the Italian culture and also the, let's say, the US management style, as he lived for a while in the US and he appreciated the US management style. So he could also bring this into a Ferrari. As we know, Enzo Ferrari, he practically never traveled outside the country, and he never, ever had been in the US. And so he could bring very relevant marketing ideas, management styles into the company, and triggered a kind of change.
Yeah, and also because he was younger, he also brought in this sort of fresh blood and new customers to Ferrari, attracted attention. And like I said, I think his main in my view, I don't know whether you agree, Patrick, I think in my view his main talent is communication. He's absolutely excellent in communicating, and in a team in the Formula One team, communication is absolutely key. You have so many people working on so many jobs. They do completely different things. So if they cannot communicate with each other, this is when things fall apart. And at the same time, if you are able to pull it all together, that all information goes into proper channels, accumulates at the executive boards, and you can trickle down these decisions very, very quickly, then you have a perfect, a perfect combination, and you have a successful team.
Exactly. At the end, he was the enabler, communicating and supporting that the relevant key people are happy, they have everything what they need, that they communicate with each other, because again, Luca had a background in law and administration, meaning he cannot drive fast the car, he cannot build the engine, he cannot do the aerodynamics. He was, his skills had been the communication, knowledge of efficient processes, and ensure that all the people, all the experts work efficiently together, and not to have silo mentality, some people working against other people, as we know from all the problems which we know from companies.
Yeah, and of course, he is knowledgeable about documentation and deals, which is very important. Risk assessment, that legal are very good at, and actually Patrick is very good at. So yeah, I mean, this is also very useful. If you understand risk, this is also very, very useful skill that you need. Yeah.
Exactly. He had all this background, and so he could use this, and also he had the hard skills, knowing the processes, knowing business theories, laws, blah blah blah, but also he had the soft skills to not only know what is necessary that people work efficiently together, but he could make it happen. Yep. So let's return a little bit to the Formula One itself. We have here the time from 1974 up to 1977, when we had the first year when Niki Lauda arrived. And again, I assume that it was also Luca Montezemolo who discussed to bring him on together with Enzo Ferrari. So something similar what we saw in the 90s with bringing Michael Schumacher to Ferrari, and we'll come to this later. So we see here some kind of golden time for Ferrari with the arrival of Niki Lauda. We had, so they've been as team second in 74, first in 75, first in 76, even if there had been the infamous fire accident by Niki Lauda, and again first as manufacturer in 1977. And again, I put a nice photo, and this time it was directly from the museum in Maranello. So this is the car with which Niki Lauda won the championship in 1975.
Yep. So again, I think again it's important to understand that. When we talk about Niki Lauda and Enzo Ferrari and Luca Montezemolo, these are all very big characters. But then I think so Luca Montezemolo was able to kind of negotiate this this kind of big egos and kind of have a good sort of consensual understanding, reach these understandings, because we know that Niki Lauda was not an easy subject. In Ferrari, he had opinions, and like I said, when you have intuitive type and when you have data-driven type, it can be very explosive. I mean, I know from personal experience working with people on various research projects, when you get a person who's kind of basically makes decisions on intuition, and then you try to sort of complement them with someone who is from data background, data science background. It doesn't end well. Usually you need someone who can actually either marry the two languages or speak to both audiences. So it often is difficult, and so it's great to see that they found this talent in Ferrari.
Another point we already mentioned shortly in the beginning.
Can I just say, like when I saw this slide, I just thought it was just so cryptic, and I just wanted to ask Patrick why this shape?
Because it's called Circle of Trust. That's why I looked for something which looked like a circle, and I thought this looks like a good background image.
But if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see the picture. But if you don't, basically we have this like a triangle, Enzo Ferrari in the middle, Luca Montezemolo and Gianni Agnelli kind of on the other kind of corners of this triangle. So I'm just wondering, like, it's actually like a triangle and not a circle.
It is the idea of a triangle, and it's like Enzo. The idea is that this is Enzo Ferrari's circle of trust, and I put here Gianni Agnelli, Luca Montezemolo. Of course, there also had been other key employees at Ferrari, like Fogheri, who was responsible for the cars and others. But let's say, as for this presentation, I thought we limit it to Gianni Agnelli and Luca Montezemolo. And my idea is that Luca Montezemolo was near to both, to Gianni Agnelli and Enzo Ferrari. And in general, Luca Montezemolo was closer to Enzo Ferrari than in comparison Gianni Agnelli, and but also Luca and Gianni had a good relation, and that's why Gianni asked him a little bit to have an eye on Enzo Ferrari, which of course brought him in some kind of conflict of interest. But
I think, Patrick, can you maybe explain to the people who don't know who Gianni Agnelli is?
Sorry, you have a good point. Gianni Agnelli, by the way, similar to Luca Montezemolo, had an aristocratic background, coming from a rich family, and he had been the owner of the big Fiat company, who also supported Ferrari later on, helped, for example, helped them in the against Ford, as Ford tried to buy Ferrari. They had been practically like the white knight, as you would know it in call it in business language. So later, Agnelli bought and Fiat bought the Ferrari company, but at the same time granted Enzo Ferrari all liberty to take the decisions over the racing department. So, and honestly, Agnelli and Ferrari had a good relation mostly, but nevertheless, there had been, of course, different business interests. That's why Agnelli also had been supporting Luca Montezemolo. And for example, in 1976, Montezemolo was promoted, and he was promoted away from Ferrari directly to Fiat, maybe to have him a little bit closer in the Fiat family, and he became responsible for the racing activities. And 1 year later, in 77, he advanced to become a senior manager in Fiat, responsible for public relations. What we already discussed, he was a great communicator. So Agnelli tried to lure him a little bit away from Enzo Ferrari, and also that maybe Luca could control Enzo a little bit and have a positive influence, as Enzo was a quite intuitive person, emotional person, and Agnelli was a little bit more the manager, and so wanted to have a little bit more control, that Enzo wouldn't do anything completely crazy or something like this.
Yeah, and I think you can. Patrick and I would discuss this a lot when we talked about Le Mans 1966, and it's if you kind of don't know anything about it, and you can always just watch the film Ford versus Ferrari, where a lot of this. If you are a Ferrari fan, you probably will not like this film too much. But it kind of tells you it was definitely not like that. But you can definitely sort of watch that movie just for context, just to see what the context was. And
That's
there's
correct.
Matt Damon in this film, and I forgot the name of the other guy, but
it's
also...
the one who played Batman.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I will look it up now. Christian Bale. Christian Bale.
You.
Yeah, Christian Bale. That's it. And it's very cool movie. So if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. But again, it's it's shown, of course, from kind of American standpoint. Just keep that in mind.
Exactly, and it's a very good movie from my point of view. I mean, it has some flaws. For example, it shows Enzo Ferrari at
a very strange portrayal of Enzo Ferrari. Even I'm not a Ferrari fan, I have to say, but even I think that was over the top.
Yeah,
it
was.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, sorry. So there had been some flaws. For example, Enzo Ferrari never visited the race at Le Mans, as he practically never visited any kind of races, and especially not outside Italy. As you mentioned, Enzo Ferrari, there had been shown the famous negotiations between Henry Ford II and Enzo Ferrari. And after this, I think Enzo Ferrari used some quite strong negative words, which I assume he not did. So he declined it also emotionally, but I think he was not speaking that badly as portrayed in the movie. Another point, there had been shown, I think it was Lorenzo Bandini, and we had a special episode about Lorenzo Bandini, and he was a very, very friendly person. So
I think like you cannot quarrel with Lorenzo Bandini for the world of it. I mean, he's very but not in the film. Yeah.
Exactly. But besides this, I mean, the title is a little bit misleading from my point of view, because the focus on the movie is not Ferrari versus Ford, but it was practically Shelby against Ford, and Ford also was portrayed in a very, very negative way. So it's everything else than a promotional movie for Ford. I mean, if you would believe this, you wouldn't buy a Ford, because all the negative corporate culture which the movie shows.
I think I think there is Christian Bale is amazing in it. Just to look at that, the way he plays, he plays in this film. You should watch it. Definitely worth it. Like my sort of critique of this film is that I think the American characters have like some interesting development in that story.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Italian side, they're all very cartoonish and very stereotypical of what you would think about Italian people. If you are an American, I have to say that's a footnote. But I think it's just, to me it was way too stereotypical. And it was sort of but there is some truth to it, right? So for example, in these negotiations, one of the main problem for the why collaboration failed between Ford and Ferrari was, and the Ferrari asked that if I want to make some independent decisions like I'm doing now, will I be able to do that? And Ford went like, no. And that's true. That's exactly what they said. Like, we are corporate, we are a corporate company, and like, you will not be able to make independent decisions anymore, which is which is fair game. That's how corporates behave. And then, but then, it's it basically, the way they portrayed the whole sort of Ferrari side was very sort of stereotypical Italian, right? It's almost like Godfather type of characters. And that's not correct. We know that's not correct from, the pictures and the sort of the stories that we told you in this series. So we know how Enzo Ferrari was very attentive. He was very taken in the input from different parts of his team, and he worked with drivers of completely different nationalities, right? So that doesn't make much sense to me. So I'm sure there were some strong feelings, but that it just didn't make sense to me how they portrayed the kind of the Italian side of it. But yeah, for context, I think it's a great film, and definitely you should watch it.
Yeah, and just to be fair, I think also all the Ford managers have been portrayed very negatively. So practically the only positive characters have been Shelby and
Shelby
the
very
driver.
Positive, yeah.
And his driver. So I mean, also Ford, as I said, they're not portrayed it in a very positive way. So it's not a commercial movie if you want to sell Ford cars.
Yeah. So Ken Miles, who is Christian Bale's sort of the Christian Bale is playing Ken Miles, who is a absolutely legendary guy. I mean, he's a fantastic driver. Was a great racing driver. I think so the fact, I mean, and it's hard to blame them, because like in the short film, right, you have like 90 minutes to tell that story, well, maybe 2 hours at best, like you have to tell that story. You cannot have a character development for everyone. That's clear. But at the same time, if you are going that mile to show the relationships, I think you need to be a little bit more authentic to it, and be, sort of saying that, okay, well, the passion is there definitely for Ferrari. But I did like how they kind of showed that, well, Enzo Ferrari was this like gold standard of how you should run, the team, and like you kind of look up to this guy. So that I think is true. So I think that many team principals would look up and think, okay, how does this guy do it, right? And why is he so successful?
So practically this is what you have to know was the situation. And after this, to help Enzo Ferrari, because Ferrari had been struggling financially, Gianni Agnelli and the Fiat company, they offered I think a much fairer contract, where Ferrari became part of the Fiat company somehow, but Enzo Ferrari kept the responsibility for the race team.
Yeah, I mean, that independence point, Gianni Agnelli said, okay, fine, like you can do what you want. There you go.
Yes, and this is a very important topic for Enzo Ferrari. Maybe you saw our episodes on Alfa Romeo, because Enzo Ferrari was working for Alfa Romeo. He was responsible for the racing department, practically an independent company. And then Alfa Romeo changed the policy and made him practically like a normal corporate employee. And this was a situation which he really disliked. And that's why he not wanted to repeat this with Ford.
Yeah, and I think sort of a lot of that decision, kind of not to go too deep into it, but like my read on that decision, that, business-wise, I mean, it made some sense for Fiat, but not a lot of sense. So I think that Gianni Agnelli and Enzo Ferrari, they shared one thing: they're very proud of like Italian motorsport. And they really wanted to show that, Italy is kind of, Italy is not only competitive, but it's the best, right? At this, like we do this stuff. We Italian people do this stuff really, really well. So I think that was a very important point for both of them.
Yes.
And this is why they were able to get to this agreement, in my opinion. I don't know. Because, like, on the business side, it's a very risky decision for Fiat. But, it was made. It was made. And you have to
but
give
I
it...
say, yeah, but say from a marketing point, you may say it makes sense because you can use the positive image also to shine a little bit on the Fiat cars. So you watch.
I agree. So there was a business component to it, but I'm just saying, I think there's also this sort of pride type of argument there.
Okay, so with this, let's come back a little bit to Luca. So Luca Montesemolo in the 1980s, and if you're seeing us on YouTube or Spotify, here you see Gianni Agnelli on the left, with Luca on the right, and a gentleman in the middle. And unfortunately, I forgot to put a note who this is. But anyway, in 82, Luca di Montesemolo became general manager of the Cinzano Vermaus International Geneva, which like an organization part of the Fiat company. So he advanced further inside Fiat, and he became also responsible to organize sports events, like, for example, the Azura Challenge, which is the International America's Cup class, which is sailing. So here he worked together with people like Giovanni Agnelli, but also Prince Aga Khan.
And so I think that's the guy in the middle, no? Well, he certainly looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, I only saw his like Aga Khan's pictures when he was older, but he does look like this guy in the middle. I don't know whether I'm right, so I'm not gonna bet on it.
No, and anyway, and in 1986 he became responsible for organizing the World Cup in Italy, which should be held in 1919. Of course, a very important event for the country, as you know, as in many countries. Football or soccer is the sport number one, with a big gap to any other kind of sports. So this was really very important for the country. And as far as I remember, it was also a very well professionally organized event. The only flaw it had for Luca is that Italy lost in the semifinals against Argentina, but nothing is perfect.
Well, that's not something that you can control as a manager. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win.
But the important point is Germany won, and so everything was fine.
Yeah, that's right. The important point is Germany. Germany won. That's right. Okay.
And of course, Fiat was one of the main sponsors. I remember they did some special edition cars at that year. Okay, with this, we're coming slowly to the 1990s, up to the 2000s. In 91, Agnelli made Montesemolo chairman of the board of directors of Ferrari. So he returned a little bit to where he started. And again, because the company was facing some difficulties after Enzo Ferrari passed away in 1988. But thanks to Montesemolo's leadership, it became the profitable sports car company, which it is still today.
Yeah, this is when they found Michael Schumacher, right?
That's correct. But first, just to add, in addition, he became also the CEO of Maserati. For a short period, it was one company, Ferrari, Maserati together.
Yeah, and I just couldn't believe it because I didn't know this before I read this. I mean, how does that happen? I mean, how do you because the whole point of Maserati was that it was not like it was made in as a like an anti set I don't know antipode of Ferrari. So it's
Well, it makes sense because you can use synergy effects, but you don't are in direct competition normally.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, and especially how can you be the CEO of both of them at the same time? That's probably not a CEO. Sorry, in one he was the chairman of the board of directors, so
Yeah.
it's a lot more
but
sort of consulting role than the CEO.
Yeah. Yes. If I remember it correctly, Maserati was struggling for a long time. It was first acquired by De Tomaso, the Argentinian-Italian company, which then went into bankruptcy because De Tomaso was much, much smaller as Maserati. And then Maserati became bought by Fiat, by Agnelli, and they had the idea to make a joint company, Ferrari, Maserati, something similar, which we had also with having Audi and Lamborghini as one company. But it was only
Enzo
a few
Ferrari
years.
would not have liked that at all.
No.
I just can imagine.
No. And it only lasted really some few years. But as you pointed out, in response to his intervention, Scuderia Ferrari hired first John Todd as a team boss in 1993. And then they decided together to go with Michael Schumacher. And also they hired Ross Brawn. So they really invested into key figures in all the important parts of the Formula One team. And it wasn't that the success only came with Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher was a very important part of the team, a very good team player, but it was really that Ferrari invested into the best people for all the positions.
Yeah, I mean, that's really also a great talent. And I think, it's probably, again, something that he sort of learned and inherited from Enzo Ferrari to be able to spot the talent, right? And of course, Jean Todt is also a fantastic find for them. This guy is just absolutely legendary. And in terms of, I think the talent search in the 90s, so they were really ahead of the game. And I'm just wondering, it would be cool to actually understand that the decision-making process around that, because, Michael Schumacher was racing for Benetton, right? And that's not a team you would really consider as a serious competitor, but at the same time, you have this ability to spot talent like that, and it's really cool. And Michael Schumacher had his shot, and then he just went for it, right? He used it to really benefit the team, and obviously, I think. To date, he holds an unbeatable record. So that's a lot. That's a lot.
That's correct. And I think this is why it is good to have this episode to show a little bit that the success depends on a lot of people inside the team. It's not just the driver, not just the engineers, etc., but there are a lot of important people.
Yeah, there are a lot of smart people behind this this victory.
Okay, then we are jumping to 2014, and Montezemolo resigned as a president and chairman of Ferrari because there had been an increasing tension with his practically successor, the Fiat Chrysler CEO Sergio Marchionne. They had the Sergio Marchionne was a Canadian with Italian heritage, but they had some complete different strategies in mind. Marchione wanted to expand the production at Ferrari to sell more cars on the different markets. And Montezemolo always had the strategy to keep production limited, to keep the desire high, and with this, the value, the exclusivity of the cars. And besides this, they're not really connected well, Montezemolo with the aristocratic background and Marchione with more the pragmatic businessman. So they didn't really could work together. And so Montezemolo took the consequences, and also as he had the opportunity, of course, to leave the company, and he would join soon later other different business adventure.
Yeah, I think this is like really cool point here, because you often have this type of well, not conflict, but rather this kind of discontinuity in companies where, you know, some people just want to increase, like, kind of they focus on growth, right? Marchione does, and then the others are, you know, they basically focus on exclusivity or some you know, specific features of the product. And so basically you always have this commercialization debate where there are two kind of completely different strategies. And you know, I mean, in the end, you can see that Montezemolo's approach actually won. So they kind of were back to the original strategy very quickly, because of course, if you are producing, you know, expensive cars, you cannot have a large market for them. You will always have an exclusive market. And if, you know, this Ferrari is a car that you want to show off, right? If your neighbor also has a Ferrari, it's probably not as good anymore. So yeah, of course, it's a prestige car, it's a status car, and you know, you cannot have too many people who have that type of status. And so in the end, we see that strategy actually prevailed, and to that day we actually observe that's what Ferrari does. I think, to be honest, like my read on his departure was that he just probably just fed up doing the motorsport and cars, and probably he thought to himself, you know, like, I cannot contribute anything else anymore, so I'm just gonna go and do something else that I want to do, right?
Of course, and he was already busy besides Ferrari, because since 2012 he was involved into Nuovo Trasporto Viaggiatori, which is the first Italian private company making a competition to the public. One second.
Yeah, so it's basically Train Italia. I just want to say that Train Italia currently, well, they won the tender in UK, and they replaced Virgin Trains. So that's the extent of how this company's operation. So that you know.
Yeah, but Train Italia is the other one. Train Italia is the governmental.
Yeah. That's I am aware. I'm just saying that the extent of that company is that they currently even present in the UK. Yes. But I just wanted to just make a point that, you know, he's not he basically was at this NTV. Which is the private, obviously the private strand of it, but I think a lot of the way it goes, right? A lot of these networks get privatized. Well, they get privatized, and you know, again, this is an interesting debate on whether that, you know, train companies should be public or private.
Yeah, and I think right at the moment in Italy, it's working quite good, at least what I can say as a passenger. So if, for example, if you are planning to visit Italy, not only stay in one place, you can really travel quite comfortable with the public trains. And this includes also these two different high-speed trains. So I had the pleasure to use both the Frecciarossa, which is the public train Italia, and also the Italo, which is from the private NTV, where Luca Montezemolo had been working. So both, they're really in competition, and you see that competition leads to growth,
better outcomes for the customer.
better options for the customer, and it's really much better than my experience in public trains here in Germany, where they are always completely full. You don't find a seat, so here you only get a ticket if you also have a seat. So it's really a much better traveling experience than in other countries, due to my personal perception. And so if you're on YouTube, you see on top the Italo, the private train from Nuovo Trasporto Viaggiatori, and looks very futuristic. It was constructed, developed by Alstom. And of course, we're speaking about high-speed trains. So what other colors they could have in Italy than red? If you see the photo below, they have a little bit a different red. So the Italo has the darker red, which is practically the same red as the Ferrari team.
Yeah.
And the other train, the Frecciarossa, which is a little bit older, it's a little bit going into orange. But both high-speed trains are using red, as you would expect. And also here, I think you have the image transfer of fast cars to fast trains.
Yeah, I've recently been looking into like Japanese train systems, and
Yes.
I just want to say that it's not easy at all to make a privately owned railway work. It's a very expensive project, and you need to be very careful with what you are doing. So the fact that it is still around and it's still functional and competitive is a big deal, and again we have to understand that you should have a very like a top managerial talent to make it work. It's very important.
Exactly. So again, a recommendation: if you're in Italy and planning to travel, this is a very good options from my point of view. With this, we are coming to another legend, Ayrton Senna, because he was in a discussion with Ferrari to finish his career at the Scuderia, and here Luca Montezemolo used also his soft skills, his communication talents, because they met at his private home in Bologna for a first time, where they discussed a little bit about possibilities for Ayrton Senna to drive for Ferrari. So he had the possibility. Nevertheless, he decided to stay with Williams for the 1993 season. After this, the contact continued, and for example, Senna spoke with John Todt about the possibility to have a seat at Ferrari. In general, they had been quite interested, but John Todt was who declined this time, because he wanted to respect the existing contracts with Gerhard Berger and John Alesi. And due to this, Todt said, we have these contracts for this year, but I can offer you a seat for 1995, which unfortunately, as we know, didn't work out anymore. Yeah. So I found this also quite fascinating, because if you think about Formula One, you would say that this kind of respect does not exist between people, or respect regarding contracts, that you can, with enough money involved, you can terminate such contracts. And of course, it would have been possible for Jean Todt to do this, I'm sure, but nevertheless, I found quite fascinating that he really mentioned here that he wanted to respect contracts with the given drivers. So I thought this is also a positive note coming out from our investigations about this for this episode.
Yeah, so but I also think that, like for Ayrton Senna was, he did have a promise for 1995, which
Yes.
which was good enough, and
Yes.
of course the cool thing is like that, this opportunity was there for him. I mean, that I'm sure meant a lot.
Yeah, and we know Ayrton Senna. I mean, I still remember him. So practically, I think it was in the last 2 years for McLaren, where he practically tried to push him inside to the Williams team, because Williams team was dominating, and he was saying, I want to drive for Williams, and I even would drive for without any kind of salary. So I drive for free for you. So he was really somebody who quite actively tried to be in the best car. And this is something what also Jean Todt remembered. So I have here a quote. He didn't give up, Ayrton Senna, telling me that in Formula One contracts don't count. But I replied that for me, a contract has to be respected. So we offered him a deal for 1995, but unfortunately, we know what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And here we have the description.
And I just want to say to those who don't, maybe there are people who don't know who Ayrton Senna is. I cannot imagine that if there are such people, but
me neither.
Yeah, so Ayrton Senna was a very legendary Formula One driver who, by many fans, is counted as one of the best drivers in the history of Formula One, and he unfortunately tragically died before he could take that contract with Ferrari. So yeah,
exactly. So for many, the best of all times, and we discussed before how difficult it is to distinguish who is the best, because Formula One changed so much from 1950s to 2022. So, but anyway, for many, many fans, he is the best of all times. So here we have a short quote, well, a longer quote from Luca Montezemolo describing the situation. He said, he wanted to come to Ferrari and I wanted him in the team. When he was in Italy for the San Marino Grand Prix, we met him at my home in Bologna on Wednesday, 27 April. He told me he really appreciated the stand we had taken against the excessive use of electronic aids for driving, which didn't allow a driver's skill to shine through. We spoke for a long time and he made it clear to me that he wanted to end his career at Ferrari. Having come close to joining us a few years earlier, what we just discussed, we agreed to meet again so as to look at how we could overcome his contractual obligations at the time. We were both in agreement that Ferrari would be the ideal place for him to further his career, which today had been brilliant, even unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, as discussed, this unfortunately, tragically never happens. So, but
then,
say,
yes? When I think about it, if this would have happened, then probably we wouldn't have had Michael Schumacher.
Yes.
Michael Schumacher
Indeed.
well, at least not as early. And,
yes.
Who knows, right? So
exactly.
It's kind of, I mean, it is, of course, a huge tragedy for the sport to lose Ayrton Senna. But then I think if he had that seat in 1995 and going forward, he would have had that seat probably. Yeah, so we wouldn't see Michael Schumacher in 1996 in Ferrari.
Yeah,
So
that's correct.
like whatever
And,
happens, right? And that's probably, I'm not gonna say that that's for the best. It's probably not for the best, but I'm just saying that wouldn't
yes,
that circumstances wouldn't have been there for Michael Schumacher.
correct. And the history would have been completely different. Of course, you may speculate if Senna would have been that fast as Schumacher, as it was discussed, he wanted practically to finish his career. And we remember the first years for Michael Schumacher, the car was really not as competitive. So another question is, would have Senna really endured all the years of without any results than Schumacher did? So a lot of question marks. We will never know the answer to.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But what we know is the 1990s, 1991, 98, when also Luca Di Montezemolo was responsible at Ferrari for decision making. We had practically starting from a complete French combination, Alain Prost, John Alesi, where Alain Prost left due to mysterious reasons. It was never really published.
There's a lot of
problem.
speculation, right? About
yes,
this.
a lot of speculation. And of course, when we're coming to 91, we will discuss the different speculations. After this, Jean Alesi, Ivan Capelli, who was then replaced by Nicola Larini. Then we have the combination for many, many years, Jean Alesi and Gerd Berger. Before then, in 1996, Michael Schumacher and Eddie Irvine had been the drivers. First year, I mean, it relatively successful for the team. They had been second, but Michael Schumacher only third after he had been twice the champion. Then in 97, he was disqualified. And we will discuss it when we speak about 97. And then Michael Schumacher second also because of his accident. I think he broke his leg. I think it was 98. 99, not that successful, only fifth. It was 99 when Michael Schumacher broke his leg. And due to this, only fifth. Mika Salo replaced him. And after different technical problems, his accident, disqualifications, and so on, finally in 2000, Michael Schumacher, his first championship, 2001, second championship, 2002, third, 2003, the fourth with Ferrari. Of course, this was already his sixth. And then in 2004, his final championship, the fifth for Ferrari and the seventh overall. After this, 2005 and 2006, not as successful. There have been different reasons, and maybe some of them is that the tires which Ferrari had been using not have been as good as not as efficient as the Bridgestone tires which had been used by McLaren. So a lot of factors in Formula One, not only driver, not only engine, not only aerodynamics, but in this year, also the tires, because we had different manufacturers in opposite to today. And last time, 2007, Kimi Räikkönen, the championship for Ferrari.
Yeah, and again, the Trinity.
Yep.
So Enzo Ferrari, Luca Montezemolo, and Niki Lauda.
Quite fascinating, by the way, is that in the 1970s, drivers not use the colors of their teams. So his overall was blue, also based, I think, on his personal sponsor, and not just red as Ferrari drivers use nowadays.
But you can tell from this photo, if you're watching us on YouTube, that Luca Montezemolo is already thinking that,
what I'm doing here.
That has to change. Yeah, we're not communicating the right thing here. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was in the earlier years, as you see, it was before Nikki's accident.
Yeah.
So now, as always, we have some quotes and words by Luca Montezemolo, and we will discuss this. They could have come also by Enzo Ferrari himself often. First one, it is always good to be in the center of the world. And for motorsports, this was Maranello, as he also pointed out in one of his presentations.
Yeah.
Then he continues, Ferrari is a small but fantastic company. Of this related to the success, but also the different people, and of course the high quality, high tech which the company is producing, including in its cars. Behind fantastic products, whatever these products are, you need fantastic people, of course. Typical
this is very Enzo, yeah. This is very Enzo.
Yeah, in fact, there had been a similar quote by Enzo Ferrari, who said, other companies are made of bricks, machinery. Ferrari is built of bricks, machinery, and people. So the same people focus as also Enzo Ferrari typically had. And of course, it's the correct approach from my point of view. For me, technology is extreme technology. This may be aligned what you said in the beginning. He was the golden boy, so he always worked at companies which had been producing extreme technology. He never worked in any kind of ordinary average company, but he started at Ferrari, then worked for Fiat. He had been the CEO for Maserati. He worked at the high-speed train. He organized the Football World Cup. So he was always in this kind of extreme companies with extreme technology. So
Yeah,
really was a golden boy disregarding.
Yeah, there was the way I interpret this quote is he's saying that technology is innovation.
Yes.
So basically, I think by extreme technology he means innovation. If you don't innovate, then you're not working in technology. I think that's what this means. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, he was always very proud of this, working in extreme technology innovation of the whole industry. Let's continue some short ones. Be curious. Again, I think this is something that every leader tells you, at least today. I mean, for us, this is, let's say, a normal management idea, but let's say even 10, 20 years ago, managers told me that people, they should not be curious, they should not think and just do what the leaders tell them to do. So today, this is, of course, the state of the art, but I remember 20 years ago, this maybe had been different depending in which organization you had been working at. Next one, typical Italian quote. I like simplicity. Typical Italian, because there's one quote which is related, which we think it's related to Leonardo da Vinci, who said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So here, I'm sure, as he coming from a aristocratic background, he studied also Italian history, the famous Italian figures. So he comes in this local tradition. Formula One is a team sport, what we're practically discussing in this whole episode. And then I don't like nouvelle cuisine, too small bits. I like to have nice wine, nice pasta, tomatoes. And this is pretty much aligned with Enzo Ferrari, who also was not a fan of big experimental cooking, but preferred...
sushi was not his cup of tea.
Yes. Not sushi, but he really preferred the traditional cuisine in the Emilia Romagna, which, to be honest, is also great. So you don't have to experiment with a lot other dishes, because it's really great food which people have there.
Yeah, by the way, I just want to say that we often, when we were describing Luka Monozemna's career, we say was because he was a manager at Ferrari.
Yes.
But he's still around.
Yes, he's still around.
He's 47 years old, and this year in August, he will be 75, right?
Yes, and he is still active, but he's, I would say, semi-retired. So he does presentations at events. He speaks at university to the students, and we will include one of these presentations where he's speaking around 1 hour about his career, about Ferrari. He did it, I don't know, 5 years ago or something like, no, must be longer, 10 years ago. So we will include one of these links. So he's still around, semi-retired, I would say. By the way, I think he was also at one point asked if he not want to become prime minister in Italy, leader of a party, but this was one offer he declined. He never went into politics, even if he has the opportunity to do so. Okay. As you see, he was and he is still a great communicator. So we have a lot of quotes this time. Next ones, let's make it clear. It's Ferrari I'm interested in. Drivers, we have had a lot, some very good, some great, but drivers come and go while Ferrari remains. And again, we see here the same mindset as
very
Enzo
corporate.
Yes.
Very corporate mindset.
Yes, the same next quote. I'm married to Ferrari. Ferrari, together with my family, is the owner of my heart. The same as Enzo Ferrari. I mean, there's this famous quote by Enzo who said, I'm married to the 12-cylinder engine. Luca was not that specific, but he also perceived being married to Ferrari. And of course, here we have to understand also Latin culture, where family has maybe a much higher importance than in other countries as Germany, US, or other Western countries. So typical Latin understanding that the family comes first. And this not only relates to your real family, but also close friends and company where you're working at eventually. We do not invest in advertising, so racing is the best advertising for Ferrari.
Yeah,
what we already discussed.
That's the one I remember. Yeah, so
yeah.
You know, and it's kind of similar to Enzo Ferrari's quote when he said that my cars don't smoke.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
That's
because when these guys were around in management, it was a lot of tobacco advertisement, and I think that probably was related to that as well, because Enzo Ferrari was obviously against tobacco advertisement, but then after his death, they had to, because, you know, obviously you need to have the revenues. So they did advertise Marlboro for many years, but, you know.
Yeah. But
at least you know that it was not Luca's idea.
Yeah. But I mean, Enzo Ferrari was sometimes very stubborn, related new tendencies. And maybe also this was one of the functions that Montezemolo had, persuading Enzo to consider maybe new developments, new technologies. For example, we had the situation at the end of 1950s, where the British teams changed the position of the engine from the front to the back, where Enzo Ferrari said that the horse is in front of the car and not pushing it from behind. So he only really agreed to the decision to change the motor from front to the back of the driver. After he really understood there was no other way to compete against the British team. So sometimes he was quite stubborn. Maybe it would have been similar with the tobacco advertising, as maybe some years later, if he would understand there's really no way to get these big budgets without big tobacco, maybe he also would have agreed it. Who knows? I mean, the same topic as what would have happened if he would have seen Ayrton Senna at the Scuderia. Next quote for this page. I like the world, but I feel very, very Italian. I love the small parts of my country, Tuscany, Capri in the winter. I don't like big towns.
Yeah, I think you missed the one that I kind of wanted also to talk about.
Oh, yeah,
it's
sorry.
about football players, and it's not very good, very flattering to football players. Basically, he said, I always say to my people, if you don't sell a Ferrari to a football player, you make a big present to me, really, because they buy to just show off. I don't like it, basically. Yeah, so and what he's saying here is that, it's... I care, like, and this is what I think Ferrari was doing for a very long time, right? They actually care who owns their cars, and if you don't behave according to the corporate ethics, they will strike you, right? And they will not sell anything to you ever again, and they will be very vocal about it. And this is just the thing is, like, if you're just buying the Ferrari car to show off and not because, you really want to have this car, you don't appreciate it, then, it's not very interesting. Yeah.
That's right. And I think if you Google a little bit, you find maybe some names which are on the blacklist. I think some weeks ago it was here in the communicated that Justin Bieber, for example, the Canadian singer, is one of the persons who is on this blacklist. So Ferrari does not sell you directly a car. It was in the media because he has now a Ferrari, so it seems that he bought it somehow secondhand, but he is on the corporate blacklist together with some other people.
Who try to paint, we'll even know these people who try to paint Ferrari cars in blue and whatnot. Yeah.
Exactly. As you can see a little bit more with Lamborghinis, which are often bought in very strange colors. But anyway, so I think this was the reason why Justin Bieber went on the blacklist. He somehow painted his Ferrari in whatever color he felt is adequate. Ferrari has this even more extreme for their limited supercars. Here you have to show that you are a long-term Ferrari customer, that you bought, I don't know, 3 Ferraris before, and that you're not just speculating with buying this car and sell it 1 month after for double of the price. So here they even are more strict that you have to have your history with the company before they accept you of selling you this car. Last of our quotes, Formula One has to be more and more also a laboratory, a center of advanced research for innovative technologies for tomorrow's cars. The course is very important in this context, and Ferrari has a manufactured head and has extraordinary support in Formula One. And again, this is pretty much the same as Enzo Ferrari said before, where he said that all big progress, development in the car sector comes from racing. So practically he repeats Enzo Ferrari here.
Yeah, but there's also this, for me, technology is extreme technology. I think this is, that's it extended, right? So it's, for me, technology is innovation. Yeah, that's what it is.
Exactly. And to compare Enzo and Luca, I also, to finish off this episode, I have here a short list of the different honors. It's not a complete list, just some to show that they had practically the same honors received by the Italian government. So Enzo Ferrari received the Commendatore dell'Ordine della Corona d'Italia in the year 1925. And similar, now it's called, because we have now a republic, Commendatore dell'Ordine del Merito della Repubblica Italiana in 1988. So it's the same, just the name is different because we're not having the kingdom anymore, but the Italian Republic. And both had been Knight of workplace, as I would translate it, Cavaliere del Lavoro, Enzo in 1952, and Luca de Montezemolo in 1998. Besides this, Montezemolo also received the Lorenzo Bandini Trophy in 1997, the trophy related to the famous Italian Ferrari driver Lorenzo Bandini. And
yeah, I just want to say that in addition to this difference that Luca Montezemolo has maybe one more trophy compared to Enzo Ferrari, I have to say that Enzo Ferrari never looked as good in a suit as Luca Montezemolo, and that's a fact. I mean,
okay,
I think Luca Montezemolo should charge the companies that make his suits, which I'm sure are all Italian. Yeah, he should charge them because he looks amazing in those suits. He just, to date, I think, looks absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
And he practically always use suit, even a tie. If he does presentations at universities, he leaves off the tie, but always in a suit. Again, I think it's his. On the one hand, is his style and
his trademark.
I'm sure his trademark, correct, but I'm sure he also likes to play around a little bit with the typical Italian cliche of always being elegant. So he uses this in a positive way, and in a very sympathetic way.
Yeah, but like we said again, for Enzo Ferrari, it was the glasses. For Luca Montezemolo, it's the suit.
Yes, but to be fair, also Enzo Ferrari practically in later years always used suit and tie.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, yeah, but it's incomparable. So in terms of the way the suit looks on Enzo Ferrari and Luca Montezemolo, like Luca Montezemolo can literally be a model for the suits.
Yeah. Right, and just to underline, your statement. Just this is practically his trademark look, always suit and tie. Even if now he leaves off the tie, at least when he does presentations for students.
I'm sure it's just the tie that the tie didn't match the suit or something. That's why he took it off that one time.
Maybe it was.
Yeah.
Maybe, but he is typical Italian, and so he uses he's not only a fan of high technology, but also I think of the best clothing the country is offering.
Yeah, I think this episode in this episode we told everyone who is watching us that he's definitely not a typical Italian. he's quite an extraordinary Italian, but so we definitely like I said, it's very controversial. It's not a figure without controversy because he's he came from a rich background and kind of was hired under very interesting conditions. But then he proved that he was worth it. The decision was that decision was a well-made decision. It was not like he was hired to work there for 1 year and then Enzo Ferrari just thought, oh no, like this guy, like just a kind of rich kid who doesn't have any brain. Luca Montezemolo actually showed that he's very good at what he does. Yeah.
Exactly, and not only in the automotive sector, as he discussed, he organized the Italian World Cup, very professional event. He was successful with public transportation. There are many other countries and companies struggled. By the way, here you have this photo for your direct comparison. On the left, Enzo with suit, and Luca de Montezemolo in a suit, early 1970s. Well, 1975, I would assume something like this.
Yeah, that's right.
So you can make your ideas.
I'm right. I know I'm right. You can just trust me.
Exactly. But we see Luca de Montezemolo practically never with sunglasses.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's wearing sunglasses, but the suit,
right.
You can see
right,
the fit.
Yeah.
I mean, this one is not a fair comparison because, Enzo Ferrari is much older, but we do have an older picture of Luca Montezemolo later in the presentation when we showed the last quote, and you can, he looks absolutely fantastic, even in that. Yeah, further down, if you can go to, I think, the last
exactly,
quote. And
I mean, so he not only has the money to use very expensive suits, I'm sure they are, but also he has, let's say, the style to do it in style.
Yeah, definitely. These are all handmade suits, by the way. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Hand fitted and all that, but yeah, fantastic. Yeah, this is the one that I was thinking about, and that's a fair comparison with Enzo Ferrari because that's kind of similar age.
Yeah,
let's just say.
I'm sure most of people agree with you.
Yeah. All right. On that happy note, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, we just want to remind you that we are on YouTube and Spotify in the video format, and we are on all sorts of platforms that keep multiplying thanks to Patrick in the podcast format. And thanks a lot for being with us, and we hope you enjoyed it, and let us know if you have any comments.
Yeah. We'll see you until the next time.
Bye.
Bye.